Kuf Chaf Tes, 129 on the bottom. The last two lines, we're up to Rabbi Shmuel. Begins Rabbi Shmuel Damri Tarvayu. Rav and Shmuel both said, Haiman David Milsa, someone that did bloodletting. Lute Midi, he should eat something. Vahad Lepuk, and then he could go out. Like we mentioned, they give you some juice, right, when you do, when you give blood. Dilai Midi, if he doesn't taste any, this is food. If he doesn't eat anything, then Ipaga B'Shichva, if he comes across like a funeral, it's a Yarka Ape, his face turns green. Ipaga B'man Dekatal Nafsha, if he comes across a murderer, so then he'll die. Ipaga B'Davar Acher, if he comes across a pig. So Kashla Davar Acher, it's bad for Davar Acher, which is Tzaras. So yeah, this Davar Acher is a way, like we would say, like Yanamachla. You don't say exactly what the name of it. You don't want to give it any power. But it's also used for a pig. You don't want to say something so impure. So you say Davar Acher. But anyway, if it comes across a Davar Acher, it's bad for Davar Acher. Two different things it's referring to. Rav and Shmuel Damri Tarvayu. Rav and Shmuel both said another statement. Haiman David Milsa, someone that did bloodletting, Lishi Porta. You should wait a little bit. Vahad Alekum, and then he should get up. I don't know if they do this. When they give blood, do they have them sit there a little bit longer? Yeah? Damar, because the master taught, Hey Dvarim Kreven Lamisi Yisim Menachayim. There are 5 things that are closer to death than life. Be'eluhein, Achal va'amad. If he eats and he right away stands up. Shasav va'amad. If he drinks and he right away stands up. Today we don't. We drink standing. We're not so careful. Maybe it's specifically wine. But even that we drink standing. Yashan va'amad. He sleeps and he immediately stands up. This we know we're supposed to wait a little bit. Hikas dam va'amad. If he does bloodletting. And then Shimish Mitasi va'amad. Also, after relations, he's supposed to wait. He's not supposed to jump up. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says, Pursa Dama, the interval of bloodletting. Kol Tlas and Yaiman is every 30 days. Beina Prakim is like between paragraphs, but over here it means when he's middle-aged, when he's 40 years old. That's what Rashi says. Then you do it a little less often. Beina Prakim gets a little older. Another in-between paragraphs, he's now 60 years old. So Rashi says. Yachsav Yamayit, then you diminish more. So in other words, it used to be every month. When he's 40, it's every 2 months. When he's 60, it's every 3 months. Yeah. Apparently, his body gets colder, and when he loses blood, it's more dangerous. For Amar Shmuel says, Pursa Dama, the intervals of bloodletting, Chad b'Shabbat, you should be done on Sunday, Arba on Wednesday, Umali Shabbat and on Friday. Aval Sheni v'Chamishi loy. Don't do bloodletting on Monday and Thursday. Damar, the master taught, only someone that has a lot of merits from his ancestors, Yakas Dam b'Sheni v'Chamishi, he can do the bloodletting on Monday and Thursday. Because we know the Bezdin Shalmaila judges every day. The Gemara says, Adam Nidam B'chol Yom, a person is judged every day. But the Bezdin Shalmata is also judging on Monday and Thursday. That's how it was. The courts were open on Monday and Thursday. So if that's the case, then that's really a time of judgment, and he shouldn't do bloodletting then. Now, if you notice, we skipped Tuesday. It says, B'tlas b'Shabbat my time alay. What's wrong with Tuesday? Why can't you do bloodletting on Tuesday? And the Gemara says, Mishum dekaimalei madim bezave. Because the planet Mars, or the constellation of Mars, is on an equal hour. Now, Rashi over here explains this. I remember I learned this, 20-something years ago in yeshiva. We were all excited because the art scroll had a big page of the whole chart of what day the planet. You have that over there? Anyone have it? You have a big chart on that? Okay, so the way it works is that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 mazalas. The acronym for it is Shatzam Chankal. It stands for Saturn. Shabsai is Saturn. And the next one is Jupiter, Tzedek. Next one is Madim, it's Mars. Then it comes Chama, the sun. Afterwards comes Noiga, which I'm not sure what that is. Maybe it's Mercury. And then it comes Koichav. Koichav just means a star. I don't know which planet.
It says that the one you asked about is Venus.
Venus. Okay. Thank you. My teacher. And then it comes the Koichav. What is it? How does it translate Koichav? Just a star? What goes after Venus?
After Venus is Mercury, then the moon.
Okay, that's Mercury. Very good. Okay, so which means that it goes in this cycle always. So you have what happened at creation. Let's say Motzei Shabbos, the first Motzei Shabbos. Oh, and the first Motzei Shabbos, it works like this. It starts with Mercury. Then the next one would be.
It says it starts on Wednesday, the first day of the constellation.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. At creation, it started on Wednesday, and then because that's when the planets were put into position, the sun and the moon and the planets. What's going to happen is that if Mars comes at an even number, so then there's a combined problem. First of all, Mars is a bad sign, and an even number is also something that could be dangerous. It's called Zugais. That's the Gemara Psachim. So when you have that combination, that's a dangerous combination. Mars at an even number, so if Mars would come at 4 or 6, then that's a problem. So here it's saying that don't do bloodletting on Tuesday because Mars comes out at I think the fourth one. Is that correct? The first one on Sunday is the sun. On Monday it's the moon. And on the first one on Tuesday is Madim, which means Madim is going to come back at the 8th. That's what it means. If the first one is Mars, then it's going to come back at the 8th, which is an even number, right? Because it's a cycle of 7. Okay. Now, our only association with this is that we don't make Kiddush on Friday night. If you look at the chart on the article, you can see. On Friday night, Mars comes out, I guess, in the 7th hour, afternoon, I guess, and that's why we don't make Kiddush during the time of Mars. Some people think you don't make Kiddush on red wine because Mars is red. That could be not. I'm not sure.
Old Meforshim say that's only correct in the months of Nisan and Tishrei.
Now,
I think the Magen Avraham brings that down.
Right. But if you look at that chart in the art scroll, maybe it's not relevant. I'm not sure. I don't know. You look at that chart. I remember looking at it that it worked out that somewhere over there on Friday night There's Mars is around Kiddush time. Okay, so the Gemara asks, Mali Shabbat Nami Kaimi Bezavi. What about on Friday? On Friday, the first day is Noiga, which we said was Venus. According to that, it's going to come out that in the 4th hour, Mars is going to come out in the 6th hour. Mars is going to come out in the, which is also an even number. So the Gemara says that's different. Kivan the Dasha Barabim Shemer P'sayim Hashem. Dasha Barabim means that many people have done this. Something that everyone does, and Hashem protects the fools. This is what everyone does, Hashem protects them. So why does everyone do it? That Rashi quotes a Gemara earlier that says the day after you do bloodletting, you're supposed to eat fish. So, and on Shabbos they would eat fish, big fish. So that's why they would do bloodletting on Friday, because they have anyways a fish meal on Shabbos. Okay. Amar Shmuel. Shmuel says Dalid, Duhu Dalid. That means Wednesday, which is also the 4th of the month. Dalid or Besar, or Wednesday, which is the 14th of the month. Or Dalid Esrim V'Arba, or Wednesday, which is the 24th. Dalid Delek Arba Basrei, or Wednesday that doesn't have 4 days until Rosh Chodesh after it. That's one pshat in Rashi. Or it's the last Wednesday of the month, but Rashi doesn't like that pshat. So all of those Wednesdays, sakanta, it's dangerous to do bloodletting. Now it says Rosh Chodesh itself, B'Sheni Lai, in the 2nd day after Rosh Chodesh, Chulsha. That's week. So it's a weekday, not week as in a weekday, and not Shabbos. It's a day that's more weak, and you should avoid bloodletting. Shlishi Lai, but the 3rd day after Rosh Chodesh, that's sakanta. That's dangerous to do bloodletting. Mali Yom Tov Chulsha, Erev Yom Tov. It's a day of weakness. We should avoid bloodletting. Mali Yom Da'atzarta sakanta, but Erev Shavuos, that's already dangerous. And because of that, the sages decreed not to do bloodletting on any Erev Yom Tov because of Erev Yom Tov, Erev Shavuos. Because Denafik Beizikush Meitavuach, because there's a wind that blows on Erev Shavuos, and that wind is called Tavuach. Tavuach means slaughtering. And the Eily Kiblo Yisrael Torah Havitavach Lo Lebisrael Damayo. If the Jewish people didn't accept the Torah, then God would have slaughtered their flesh and blood. There's a funny expression there. Very funny expression. So Shavuos although it's a holiday for us, but it could have been, if we didn't accept the Torah, it could have been a dangerous time. So because of that, there's this wind, which is a dangerous wind. You shouldn't do bloodletting on Erev Shavuos. Because of that, you shouldn't do bloodletting on any Erev Yom Tov. Amar Shmuel, Achal Chitavik is dam. If someone ate wheat, that means like he ate something heavy, and then he does bloodletting. So if he's doing bloodletting to heal, then leihikazel leisechita. What he just lightened up was the food that he just ate. That's all he accomplished. He ate something and he did the bloodletting. He got rid of the harm or the heaviness from that food. That's only if he was doing bloodletting for medicinal purposes. But if he's just trying to lighten it up, he has extra blood. He needs to let out blood. So makel. So yeah, that definitely works. Okay, now hamak is dam. Someone that does bloodletting, shasye la'alter, should drink right away, and achila ad chatzi mil. And you should eat until a half a mil. Half a mil is a distance of walking, but it's turned into an amount of time. I guess it's, 9 minutes? I think a mil we said was like 18 minutes or something. Half a mil is like 9 minutes. Iboilu, the Gemara has a question. What does this mean? Does it mean shasi la'alter mali? Does it mean that if you drink right away, then it helps? But after that, it's dangerous? Or maybe afterwards it just doesn't do anything. This statement is very vague. It doesn't tell you what happens if you don't do it. Usually when you go to the doctor, they give you a prescription. They tell you do this and that. They don't write in between that if you don't do this, what's going to happen. They just tell you the instructions. So here we have the instructions. This is what you're supposed to do. The Gemara is now asking. Yeshiva Bacha goes to the doctor. Yeah, he asks every question. What happens if I don't shake it well? If I don't take it every 3 hours, if I skip one, what happens then? So the Gemara is asking, what happens if you drink later? Is that bad or just it's not effective? Gemara says teku. They have a question. Achila ad chatzi mil. Eating, it's until a half a mil, which we said was probably like 9 minutes. Hu de kamali. That's what's helpful. Habasar hachi umakami hachi. But if it's before 9 minutes or after 9 minutes, kashi, is that bad? Or maybe it's just not effective. Gemara says teku. We don't have the answer to that. Machriz Rav announced. Meya kari b'zus. There's different interpretations for the following phrase. Way Rashi learns is that don't buy gourds. Kari is gourds, squash. Don't buy them unless they're very cheap. Unless you get 100 of them for a zuz. They're not so healthy, and unless you get them very cheap, it's not worth it. Meya reishi b'zuzah. 100 animal heads, also, only if you can get them cheap. Meya sifmi v'lei klum, 100 lips of the animal, it's not even for nothing. They don't give you any nutritional, there's no nutritional significance to that. Amar Rav Yosef says, K'avina bei Rav Huna. Rav Yosef says, I was in the yeshiva of Rav Huna. Yoma de mefagri rabbanan. It was a day that the students were lazy. Amri, they said, today's the day of the lips. I didn't know what they were talking about. Turns out what they meant to say was that today is like nothing happening today. There's no success today. Okay, we mentioned in the Mishnah, the woman gives birth, what you're allowed to do. So we had a discussion. The sages said, the first opinion said, you're allowed to tie the umbilical cord. Rabbi said you're allowed to cut it as well. So, Tana Rabbanan, start in a brisa. It says, Koshin ataber, you're allowed to tie the umbilical cord. Tana Rabbanan, Koshin ataber, you're allowed to tie the umbilical cord. Rabbi Yossi says that you're allowed to cut it as well. Rabbi Yossi is Rabbi Yossi from the students of Rabbi Akiva. Ben Chalafta. I'm not sure how exactly this works, but apparently if you cover over the placenta, then somehow that warms the baby. I think we're talking about where the placenta is separated, of course, and nevertheless, you put it over, you cover that over, somehow the baby gets warm. Yeah, they have these things like with lahavdil, there's a Gemara, but like if you put the avocado pit in the avocado, it doesn't turn brown. Someone said even if it's in the other room, also somehow like, how does it know? Okay. Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Shimon ben Gamliel says, B'nais malachim, taimnes b'sfalim shel shemen. Princesses, they would put it in a bucket of oil. Wealthy girls, they put it in a container It sounds like sponges. Of combed wool. But poor people put it just in shmatas. But whatever it is, they cover it over. Somehow that warms the baby. Rav Nachman says in the name of Rabbi Varavua, in the name of Rav, that halacha Rabbi Yossi are allowed to cut the umbilical cord as well. Rav Nachman Rabbi Varavua Rav Meidim Chacham Rabbi Yossi b'Tabar Tabar shel Shnei Tinokas shechaytchen. My time at the Menatche Adadi. Yeah, if they're twins, the Chachamim agree that you're allowed to cut the umbilical cord. Now, Rashi says that their umbilical cords are tied together. Then you're allowed to cut it. It's not saying that they're attached. They're not attached. It's just I think it means that just the umbilical cords get cut on each other. Then you're allowed to cut it. Okay. Because they pull on each other. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Avu, Amar Rav Kalayim Parshas Teichacha, Oisen Lachai b'Shabbos. This is a very interesting piece. In Yecheskel, it's talking about all the things that Hashem does for the people, and they should be appreciative and respond accordingly and act with that appreciation. So this is considered a rebuke. And the Gemara is saying anything that it says in that section of Yecheskel, those are things that you're allowed to do for the child. So it starts off, Shenemar, it says, Moldei Sayach b'yom heledes Isach, gave birth to you, or that on the day that you were born. Leikara Sorich, did he not cut the umbilical cord? B'mayim le'ruchatz l'mishi, and did he not wash in water to clean you? V'hamaleach lehem lacht, and apparently they would put salt on the baby to somehow, the salt would make him stronger. V'hachtel leichutalt, we'll see what that means. It means to wrap him up. So what this tells us is, the first part of the pasuk, gave birth to you, that tells us that we're allowed to help the woman give birth on Shabbos. To cut the umbilical cord, that means you're allowed to cut it on Shabbos. To clean them, to make them smooth. You're allowed to wash the baby right after he's born. You're allowed to put the salt on. And this tells us, this last point tells us that you're allowed to swaddle. They wrap the baby up in a blanket, swaddle the baby. You're allowed to do that. We mentioned before that you're not allowed to straighten out the bones. That was like putting into position, but this is not doing that. This is just wrapping the baby up tight. Okay. Okay, we start the new parak. This parak has its own title. It's very interesting. Usually the parakim start with the words of the first words of the chapter, but this is so famous. It's called Rabbi Lezer de Mila. Rabbi Lezer of Mila. That's not exactly how it starts. It starts with another phrase, but it's Rabbi Lezer's opinion regarding Mila. That's how this chapter starts. I don't know another chapter that does that. Rabbi Lezer Eimer. This is Rabbi Eliezer ben Horkenes. Rabbi Lezer the Great. Rabbi Lezer Eimer, Im Lehevi Kelim Erev Shabbos, Meviu B'Shabbos Megula. If you don't have the knife that's used for the circumcision on Shabbos, so you're allowed to bring, if you didn't prepare it from Erev Shabbos, you're allowed to bring it on Shabbos. However, you have to bring it exposed. We're going to see exactly why. We'll see in the Gemara. But if it's the time of a decree, when you're not allowed to do a circumcision, you can't just walk out with a knife like that, exposed, holding a knife. So, with a mask. So then you cover it over, but you need to have witnesses that see what you're putting under that covering. We'll see what it means, witnesses, if the person himself is included. Rabbi Lezer says, "Karsim eitzim lasis b'chamim lasis barzel." Rabbi Lezer has such a lenient view here that he holds that if you don't have a knife, besides that you're allowed to bring it from somewhere else, he holds you're allowed to heat up wood, to make coal, to make iron, to prepare a knife, to do all of that. I wonder if you can get all of that done on one day. But apparently that's what they would do. They need a knife, they would have to do this. Okay, there's some words that are inserted here. I'm not sure if I'm supposed to read it or not. Amar Rabbi Kiva, Kol malacha she'efshar la'aseh mi'erev Shabbos. Rabbi Kiva says any work that could have been done Erev Shabbos, he argues on Rabbi Lezer. If you could have done it Erev Shabbos, then ain't deichas Shabbos. You could have brought the knife Erev Shabbos, you could have made the knife Erev Shabbos. There's no reason to do it now. You forgot or whatever, you're too busy. But so that's not an excuse. Anything that couldn't have been done Erev Shabbos, for example, the bris itself. So then deichas Shabbos. Maybe they need hot water or something. But that anything that would that needs to be done on Shabbos, that is done on Shabbos. If it could have been done from yesterday, it needs to be done yesterday. It needs to be done before Shabbos. It's machlekes, Rabbi Kiva and Rabbi Lezer. They have a question. Time of the Rabbi Lezer. When Rabbi Lezer said that you cover it over if it's a time of danger, and you have witnesses that see what you're covering over. However, he also said that if there's no danger, then you carry it exposed. Now, what are you doing when you're carrying it exposed? Are you trying to show everyone, look everyone, there's a celebration, we're about to do a mitzvah, I'm carrying the knife? Or is it that if you don't expose it, then you're avoiding something negative? If you don't expose it, then people are going to think you're carrying other things. Is it to avoid something negative, or is it the positive side to show everyone that you're doing a mitzvah? There's going to be a difference. Time of the Rabbi Lezer mishum chivuvi mitzvah. Is it because of the belovedness of the mitzvah? You want to show everyone, look everyone, we're about to do a mitzvah. Or maybe the reason why you carry it exposed is so that no one thinks you're carrying your own personal items. What's the difference? Either way, just carry it open. That's what he said. No. Let's say I have witnesses that see that I'm not carrying my personal things. Witnesses see that I'm carrying the knife that's needed. It's called the ismal, the knife that's needed for the circumcision. Am I allowed to do that? If it's for the belovedness of the mitzvah, to make a big to-do and a celebration about this, megula and mechusalais, what do you gain? You have two witnesses. It's nothing. You have to walk out into the street like you're holding a flag, to show everyone that you're carrying on Shabbos just to perform the mitzvah of Milah. That's like an announcement. But if it's to avoid people thinking that you're carrying your own personal items, then it's enough if it's covered over, but witnesses saw that it's not a personal item. So that would be the difference. Of course, if there's a sakana, then we know that that's what you do. When there's no sakana, can you also do that? That's the Gemara's question. So what's the din? So Itmar, it was stated, Amar Rab Levi. Rab Levi says, he said that you carried exposed He wants to increase the celebration. Tanya Nami Hachi Mevia Megula Ve'Mechim Mechusa Div Rabbi Eliezer. It's also taught in a brisa. You bring it exposed, you don't bring it covered. That's what Rabbi Eliezer holds. Amar Avashi, Masnisin Nami Dayaka. If you look carefully in the Mishnah, you'll see that as well. Diktania B'Shasa Sakana Mechaseu Al Pi Eidim says at the time of danger, you cover it, and you have witnesses see what you're covering. That's only at a time of danger that you can do that, covering with witnesses. It's clear that if it's not a sakana, you're not supposed to do the covering, you're supposed to carry it in the open. That's because you want to show everyone that even though it's Shabbos, the mitzvah of Milah takes precedence, overrides the laws of Shabbos, according to Rabbi Eliezer. The preparations of the Milah override. Tanya Idach, there's another brisa that says, you bring it exposed, you don't bring it covered. That's what Rabbi Eliezer says. Rabbi Yehuda Mishum Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yehuda says in his name, that you could, we were accustomed during the days of danger, when there was a decree, not to do a bris, that we would cover it with witnesses. During the days of Rabbi Nasi, there was a decree. I think it says clearly that it was Hadrian, that religious persecution under Hadrian. Adrianus is the Gemara's name for him. This is earlier than that. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly. The Bavli doesn't tell us a lot of the names. It's very seldom that we get the names of the Roman emperors, like what the persecution was. Ibailahu, they had a question. Edim de Ka'amar. When it says that you cover it with witnesses, you v'chad, does it mean that I have this fellow that's carrying it, plus one more person, and that's considered witnesses? Idil mahu utrei, maybe this fellow that's carrying it, plus I need another two. What does it mean, witnesses? Does it mean to witness this event? Then I need another two. Or does it mean witnesses, any kosher witnesses? Because it's just a name to talk about two people, which could mean this person and someone else. Not to testify this event. To testify this event, I need two other people. So Tashima, ubasakana mechaseu al pi edim. At time of danger, you cover it with witnesses. If we say him and two others, witnesses, then good. What does it mean, witnesses? This person can't testify about his own, what he did. Can't testify about himself. The Gemara answers, no, doesn't mean testifying about this event. It means that they testify about any event. Two witnesses, it means two people, him and someone else, it could be. Okay. Rabbi Eliezer also said that you're allowed to cut the wood. In the area where that Rabbi Eliezer lived, they would paskin like that. Do we know where Rabbi Eliezer lived? I think we do. I don't remember. Oh, we had recently that he lived in, remember Rabbi Akiva went to work for him? And he was then, Rabbi Akiva was in the Galila Elyon, Bidarim. That's not much of a location. He lived in the south of the Upper Galilee. Okay. No, but I think we have other sources where he lived. I remember if it was Lud. And whatever the case is, in his area, they paskin like Rabbi Eliezer, and they cut the wood to make coal, which from the coal they would make iron. From the iron they would turn it into a knife. All of that on one Shabbos to be able to perform a bris. In Rabbi Eily, in the area of Rabbi Yossi, the Galilean, he was a friend student of Rabbi Akiva. They would eat fowl, with milk together. They weren't careful with that. You could have chicken and schnitzel with cheese. There was no problem, according to Rabbi Eily. Levi ikla lebe Yosef Rishba Levi was a student of Rabbi. He ends up at the house of Yosef the hunter. Rishba, he was a bird hunter. Krivale Reisha the Tavsa Bechelba, they brought him the head of a peacock. That's how they translate that. Apparently a peacock is kosher. And they brought it with milk. And layachal, he didn't eat it.
A peacock is kosher? Never knew that.
Yeah, that's apparently.
I thought it's a bird of prey.
Is it a wild bird? I don't know. Usually you just see, the only thing you notice is that they're pretty. I don't know about their habits. Steinsaltz translates it as a peacock. It could be that there's different versions to this text. If it's tafsa with a taf or tafsa with a samach. And so this Levi didn't eat it. Yasla Kamei the Rabbi comes back to Rabbi. Rabbi was his teacher. Amalei Amai Leite Shamtinu. Why didn't you put him in Cherem? He's serving you treif. He's serving you milk and meat. Amalei Asid Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. It was the area of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. I don't know what's going on over there. Vamina, I thought, Dilma Darstuk Rabbi Eily, maybe they pass on like Rabbi Eily. The Tanan, we had a Mishnah in Chulin. Rabbi Eily, Rabbi Eily says, Nemer, Leiseichlu Kol Nevela, Venemer Leisavasha Kol Diba Chalevimai. It says you shall not eat any nevela. In the same pasuk it says, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. So, anything that could become a nevela, that could become a carcass which is forbidden to eat, you're not allowed to cook with milk, so that would include a bird. If a bird is not shechted, it would be aser. Maybe a bird as well. Talmud Laimar b'chalevi, it says in its mother's milk. A bird's mother doesn't have milk. So a kid in its mother's milk obviously isn't referring to bird. That's Rabbi Eily's opinion. So therefore, according to him, it's permissible. He's responding why he's explaining to Rabbi why he didn't put him in Cherem. He said, I'm not putting them in Cherem if they have a different opinion. They're allowed to follow that opinion. That's they're following the Rabbi. Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak says, it was a city in Israel. They paskin like Rebbe Lezer. There was no bad occurrences. Everyone died in their appropriate time. Even though they would perform the bris on Shabbos with all the preparations. They would prepare the knife, the fire, and everything. You see, it was it's like a sign that they were allowed to do that. They were allowed to follow Rebbe Lezer. It was one time there was a decree from the Roman government against circumcision. In that city, they allowed them to do circumcisions. They passed like Rebbe Lezer, they were exempt. They were so careful about bris that the decree didn't go on them. What was the carefulness that they did? The bris pushed off Shabbos. Even the preparations pushed off Shabbos. Tanya, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel Eimer. Shimon ben Gamliel says, Kol mitzvah shekiblu aleim b'simcha k'gemila. Any mitzvah that was accepted with joy, for example, the bris, the ksiv, I rejoice on your words, like I found a great treasure. That we still do it with simcha. The joy that we had when we accepted the mitzvah, we still have that joy. But any mitzvah that came with conflict, It says Moshe heard the people crying in their families. The Gemara explains, they were crying over the laws of adultery or incest. They were crying over those laws. Those laws, there still is conflict. There's a famous Gemara. There's no marriage document that doesn't have a conflict. It's always something, a little thing, something that some sort of quarrel. They want this color napkins, the bench, the flowers, the hall. There's always something. Tanya. Beryl Davidoff says he likes when someone, the chazan that's davening for the Amud, if his kids are involved in shidduchim, says, and he knows that that person's really davening. Says that's a good chazan. Okay. Tanya, Reb Shimon ben Elazar Reimer, Reb Shimon ben Elazar says, Kol mitzvah shemas Yisrael atzma aleim lemisa b'shas gzeres malchus. Any mitzvah that the Jewish people sacrifice themselves, if there was a decree against it, they still hold it. Those mitzvahs. Any mitzvah that they didn't sacrifice themselves when there was a decree, going tefillin, for example, tefillin it's still weak. Tefillin apparently was weak. Later on in history also was weak. The smag says went around encouraging people to put on tefillin, just like the Rebbe. Damar Rabbi Yanai, tefillin tzrichen guf naki, kalisha balkan afayim. Rabbi Yanai says that tefillin needs to have a clean body. Like Elisha balkan afayim, the owner of the wings. Mahi, what happened? Amar Rabbi shliafiach bem. This means, before you get to the story, first, what does it mean, a clean body? It means he shouldn't pass gas while he's wearing them. Rav says he shouldn't sleep in the tefillin. Why was Elisha called Balkan Afayim, the master of the wings? We had this Gemara before, I think. Yeah, in this Masechta we had it. One time there was a decree, anyone that wears tefillin, they'll poke out his head, his brain. But Elisha was wearing tefillin. Now tefillin in those days wasn't just for davening, tefillin was the whole day. And he went out to the marketplace. He sees a soldier, some official. He ran away. The soldier ran after him. When the soldier the official caught up to him, he took it off his head that he was holding it in his hand. What do you have in your hand? It's wings of feathers, I guess, of a dove. He opened up his hands, and lo and behold, there were feathers there. That's why he got the nickname Balkan Afayim, the master of the feathers, of the wings. Why did he choose that? I guess this means because that's what he told him. He didn't say other birds, because the Jewish people are compared to the dove. Let me get the translation for that. The wings of a dove, covered in silver. Covered with silver, and her pinions with yellow gold. What are pinions? It's an English word. Okay. So the Gemara explains, Ma yoina zu knafel maginis, just like the dove, the wings protect it. Af Yisrael mitzvahs maginis aleim, also the Jewish people, the mitzvahs protect the Jewish people. Amar Rabba bar Ada, Amar Reb Yitzchak. Rabbi bar Abba says the name of Reb Yitzchak. Hamachas, one time Shachav Levi Ismael Meir of Shabbos, they forgot to bring the blade. The Ismael is the Mila knife. That's what it's called. Sounds like scalpel. They forgot to bring this Ismael from Erev Shabbos. They brought it on Shabbos. They brought it through the roofs, through the courtyards. Against the opinion of Rabbi Lezer. Now, it's a problem over here. Rabbi Lezer holds you allowed to bring everything. Apparently, the courtyards and the roofs weren't joined together with an Eruv to make carrying permissible. But the Gemara right away asks, what are you saying, Shleiber Tzin Rabbi Lezer? Adarabba. Rabbi Lezer the Shari, Rabbi Lezer is exactly the opposite. He was the one that allowed everything for the bris. That it was against the will of Rabbi Lezer. What did we mean? The Shari Afilu B'Shasarabim, he allows it even in a public area. In other words, Rabbi Lezer would have wanted them to carry it through the main street. They went against his will and they carried it through the courtyards, through the backyards. Rather, what are they saying? That it was according to the will of the rabbis. It was against Rabbi Lezer, but according to the rabbis. But the rabbis did allow it to carry through the backyards and through the open areas. Karfeif is something that was just added in here. Karfeif is a large park that's surrounded by a wall, surrounded by a fence, but it's too large for dwelling. It's like a city park type of place. Umishari, but would the rabbis allow to carry through those areas where there's no Erev, even a courtyard? Vatanya, you can't bring it by the roofs, by those enclosed areas. You can't bring it by the courtyards. The reason for this is the rabbis, they held their opinion, any decree of the rabbis was so strong that it was as if it was a Rosh Hashanah. Even though the bris is important, but the areas where you're allowed to carry, where you're not allowed to carry rabbinically, the rabbis instituted it in such a strong way that you can't violate that, even if there's a mitzvah of Mila. So what are we saying over here? They carried it through the backyards against the will of Rabbi Lezer, because Rabbi Lezer would go through the streets, but it was according to the rabbis. The rabbis wouldn't allow it through the backyards either. Elam Ravashi explained Shleiberton Rabbi Lezer Machlukas. It wasn't according to anyone in Rabbi Lezer's group. Not Rabbi Lezer and not those that argue on him. Elibertzain Reb Shimon, it went according to Reb Shimon. Not Reb Shimon, Reb Chagagos, Reb Karfeifes, Reb Chatzeres, Kulin Shesechad, and Kelim Sheshavs B'Seichon, Leila Kelim Sheshavs B'Seichon Bias. Reb Shimon's opinion is that things that are actually in the courtyard, you're allowed to carry from courtyard to courtyard, even without an Erev. The only thing that you're not allowed to do is carry from the house to the courtyard. So there are houses, like apartments, and they have a public area. Even without an Erev, everything in that courtyard could be moved around. You just can't carry from the house into the courtyard. And from that courtyard to another courtyard, he allows also. So let's say the bris was in the courtyard. You wouldn't have been allowed to take the knife into the house. But let's say the bris was in the courtyard. The baby, they must have carried out. I don't know. The bris was in the courtyard. They were allowed to carry from one courtyard to another, according to Reb Shimon.
It means directly from courtyard, like there was a gate or a hole in the fence between two courtyards. So you're not going through a Rosh Hashanah.
Right. It was probably like the back wall or something.